Once upon a time, in a busy town full of tall buildings and noisy markets, there lived a wealthy man named Samuel. Samuel had a big house with shiny walls and the fastest cars anyone had ever seen. Everyone in the town knew him because of his riches. But even with all his wealth, Samuel was lonely. People smiled at him and praised him, but he knew they only liked him for his money, not for who he really was. He had many friends who loved his gifts, but none who cared about his heart. Samuel grew tired of this. He wanted to find someone who would like him even if he had nothing. So, one day, he came up with a plan. He decided to leave his big house and pretend to be a poor farmer with no money at all. He thought, if someone helps me when I look like I have nothing, then they must really care about me. He told his older sister, Clara, about his idea. Clara was a famous cloth seller in the town, known for her bright fabrics. She didn't like the plan. Samuel, what if someone finds out who you are? You could get into trouble, she warned. But Samuel shook his head. I'll go to a faraway village where no one knows me, he said. He was ready to take the risk to find true friendship. So, Samuel packed a small bag, put on old, dusty clothes, and walked miles to a quiet village surrounded by green hills. There, he sat under a big mango tree, pretending his legs hurt and he couldn't walk well. He held out a shaky hand and said, "Please, can someone help me?" He felt scared asking for help. He had always been the one giving, not taking. Days went by, and people walked past him. Some looked at him quickly and then turned away. Others didn't even stop. Samuel felt like no one could see him. But one sunny afternoon, a girl named Mary came along. Mary was young and cheerful, with a big smile. She lived with her uncle, Thomas, who took care of goats on a small hill. Mary hadn't always lived with her uncle. When she was little, her parents were farmers in another village. One rainy night, a big storm washed away their house. Her parents didn't make it out, and Mary was left alone. Thomas, her father's brother, heard about the tragedy and came to get her. He brought her to his small house, promising to care for her like his own daughter. They didn't have much, but Mary always found a reason to be happy with her uncle. When Mary saw Samuel under the tree, looking tired and hungry, her heart felt soft. She stopped and knelt beside him. "Are you okay?" she asked kindly. Samuel was surprised. No one had talked to him like that in days. "I'm just trying to live," he said, making his voice sound weak. Mary reached into her basket. She only had a few coins from selling goat milk, but she gave them to him. "It's not much, but take it," she said. Samuel's throat felt tight. Her kindness warmed him more than all his money ever did. "Thank you," he whispered. "This means a lot." Mary smiled. "Do you have a place to stay?" she asked. Samuel shook his head, feeling bad for lying. Mary thought for a moment. "I live with my uncle. Our house is small, but maybe he'll let you stay." She ran home to ask. When she got there, Thomas was resting after a long day with the goats. His hands were rough from work, but his eyes were gentle. "Uncle, I met a poor man under the mango tree," Mary said. "He looks weak and has no home. I gave him my coins, but he needs more help." Thomas nodded slowly. "We can't leave him out there alone," he said. "Bring him here. We'll share what we have." Mary smiled, happy her uncle was so kind. She hurried back to Samuel. "My uncle says you can stay with us," she told him. Samuel couldn't believe it. "Thank you," he said, his heart feeling full. Mary helped him walk to their small mud house with a straw roof. When they got there, Thomas welcomed him with a warm handshake. "You're safe here," he said. Samuel looked around. The house was tiny, but it felt cozy. For the first time in a long time, he felt cared for. That night, Mary gave Samuel a bowl of yam soup. He ate slowly, enjoying every bite. She sat nearby and talked to him. "You can stay as long as you need," she said. Samuel smiled. Over the next few days, Mary and Thomas took care of him. They gave him a mat to sleep on and let him sit by their fire at night. Samuel loved talking to Mary. She was smart and funny, and soon they were laughing together like old friends. One evening, as they sat outside watching the stars, Mary looked at him. "You seem worried sometimes," she said. "Is something wrong?" Samuel wanted to tell her the truth, but he stayed quiet. "I'm just thankful to be here," he said. Mary nodded, but he could tell she was curious. Back in the town, Clara was getting worried. Samuel hadn't sent any word, and she missed her brother. She sat by her shop window every night, praying he was safe. "Where could he be?" she whispered, her voice shaky. She wished he had stayed home. One night, Thomas sat with Samuel by the fire. "How did you end up like this?" he asked. Samuel's heart beat fast. He made up a story. "I fell while working in the fields," he said. "My legs got hurt, and I can't afford a doctor." Thomas felt sad for him. "That's hard," he said. "We'll find a way to help you." The next day, Thomas told Mary they should try to get money for Samuel's doctor. "We can sell some goats," he said. Mary agreed. They didn't have much, but they wanted to help their new friend. Mary started selling goat milk in the village market, and Thomas sold a few goats. They hid the money in a clay pot, planning to surprise Samuel. But one day, a boy named Victor came to the market. Victor was from the town and liked Mary. He always brought her gifts, like beads or fruit, and asked her to be his friend. "Come live with me in the town," he said. "I'll give you a big house." Mary shook her head. "I like my life here," she said. Victor got mad. "You're silly to stay poor," he shouted and walked away. Mary's friend Lily heard about Samuel. Victor had paid her to convince Mary to like him instead. Lily went to Mary's house and said, "Victor is so nice. He has money and a big home. Why don't you choose him?" Mary smiled. "I don't want Victor. I think I like Samuel." Lily was shocked. "That poor man with bad legs. You're making a mistake," she said angrily. Mary stayed calm. "If you only talk about Victor, don't come back," she said. Lily left, mad. Lily ran to Victor and told him Mary liked Samuel. Victor was furious. "How can she pick a poor farmer over me?" he yelled. He didn't know Lily was jealous too. She liked Victor and wanted him to notice her, but he only cared about Mary. Meanwhile, Thomas decided to sell his best goat to get enough money for Samuel's doctor. It was his favorite goat, passed down from his father, but he cared about Samuel more. He sold it and came home with coins. "We have enough now," he told Samuel, smiling. "You can see a doctor soon." Samuel's face turned white. He felt awful. This kind man had given up so much for him, and it was all based on a lie. He couldn't keep pretending. "Thomas," he said, his voice shaking, "I have to tell you something. I'm not poor. I'm a wealthy man from the town. I came here pretending to be hurt because I wanted to find real friends who didn't care about my money." Thomas stared at him, then walked outside without a word. He sat under the mango tree, his heart breaking. He had sold his goat for someone who didn't need it. Mary came in and asked, "What's wrong?" Samuel told her the truth too. Her eyes filled with tears. "How could you lie to us?" she cried. "We worked so hard for you." She ran to her room, sobbing. Samuel sat alone, feeling terrible. Soon, the village heard Samuel was rich. People whispered and pointed. Victor had two and gave up on Mary, thinking he couldn't win against a rich man. He went to Lily and said, "Let's be friends now." Lily laughed. "I know you're not rich, Victor. You borrow your uncle's cars. I won't be with a liar." Victor walked away, ashamed. The next day, Samuel went to Mary. "I'm sorry," he said. "I want to take you and Thomas to the town. I'll make everything right." Mary shook her head. "You hurt us too much," she said sadly. She went to help Thomas with the goats, leaving Samuel alone. Later, Lily came to Samuel. "Mary doesn't deserve you," she lied. "She's mean and doesn't care about you." Samuel frowned. "Why didn't you help me when I was under the tree?" he asked. Lily stammered, "I was waiting for the right time." Samuel shook his head. "You just want my money. Leave," he said. Lily ran off, angry. Samuel tried to say sorry to Mary and Thomas, but they couldn't trust him anymore. He felt so sad. They had been his true friends, and he had lost them with his lie. One morning, he decided to go back to the town. As he left, he looked back at the village, wishing he could stay. When he got home, Clara hugged him tight. "I was so worried," she said. Samuel told her everything, how Mary and Thomas had helped him, and how he had lied. Clara felt bad for him. "You'll find good friends again," she said. But Samuel didn't feel better. Back in his big house, he missed Mary and Thomas so much that he couldn't eat or drink. His fancy cars and money didn't make him happy anymore. He wasn't comfortable without them. Every day, he thought about Mary's smile and Thomas's kind words. He didn't feel good without his friends. Clara saw how much Samuel was suffering. His face looked pale, and his eyes were sad. She couldn't watch her brother waste away. One day, she went back to the village herself. She walked a long path to Mary and Thomas's house and knocked on their door. "Please, I know Samuel hurt you, but he's so sorry. He misses you every day. He didn't mean to lie. He just wanted real friends. Can you forgive him?" she said. Mary and Thomas listened quietly. Their hearts were still sore, but they could see Clara was honest about Samuel's sadness. "We need time," Thomas said. "He broke our trust." Clara nodded and left, hoping they'd change their minds. Back in the town, Samuel got worse. He stopped eating and drinking completely. His body grew weak, and one day, he fell very sick. Clara was scared. She took him to the best hospitals, where doctors tried everything to make him well. But Samuel didn't get better. All he wanted was his friends back. He whispered Mary's name in his sleep, and Clara knew he wouldn't heal without them. Clara went back to the village again. This time, she begged with tears. "Samuel is in the hospital. He's so sick because he misses you. He can't live without you. Please, come see him. He needs you." Mary's heart softened. She remembered how much she had liked Samuel, even after his lie. Thomas nodded too, but he looked troubled. "I've spent my whole life with these goats," he said. "They're all I have. I don't know if I can leave them and the village behind." Mary touched his arm. "Uncle, Samuel needs us. We can figure out the goats later." Thomas sighed, torn between his love for his niece and his simple life. "Let's go see him first," he finally said. They packed a small bag and followed Clara to the town. At the hospital, Mary and Thomas walked into Samuel's room. He lay on the bed, thin and weak, but when he saw them, his eyes lit up. "Mary." "Thomas," he whispered. Mary ran to his side and held his hand. "We're here," she said. Tears fell from her eyes. "We forgive you." Thomas smiled. "We missed you too," he said. Seeing his friends gave Samuel strength. Day by day, he got better. The doctors were amazed at how fast he recovered with Mary and Thomas by his side. While Samuel was healing, he and Mary talked for hours. They laughed like before, and soon, Samuel realized he loved her. One day, as they sat outside the hospital, he said, "Mary, you're the kindest person I know. I love you. Will you stay with me forever?" Mary blushed but smiled. "I love you too, Samuel," she said. They hugged, and Thomas clapped, happy for them. But then, a woman named Evelyn appeared. She was rich and beautiful, from Samuel's town, and claimed she'd known his true identity all along. "I saw you leave, Samuel," she said. "I waited for you to come back. Forget this village girl. Marry me, and we'll rule the town together." She brought gifts and promises of power. Samuel was shocked, and Mary felt unsure. Could she trust Samuel again after this? Evelyn's words made her doubt. Meanwhile, Thomas struggled with his decision. He missed his goats and the quiet village life. "I've built everything around them," he told Mary. "The town's so big and strange. Can I really leave my home?" Mary saw his worry. "Uncle, we're a family. We'll help you," she said. But Thomas stayed quiet, unsure if he could let go. Samuel asked Mary and Thomas to move to the town with him. Mary hesitated, worried about Evelyn. Thomas hesitated too, thinking of his goats and the life he'd always known. Days passed, and tension grew. Evelyn kept visiting, telling Samuel, "Mary doesn't deserve you. I'm your match." Mary overheard and ran off, crying. Samuel chased her. "I don't want Evelyn," he said. "I only love you. She means nothing to me." Mary looked into his eyes and saw the truth. She hugged him tight. Thomas thought hard about his goats. He loved them, but he loved Mary more. "I can't lose you," he said to her one evening. "I'll sell the goats and come with you. Family matters most." They moved to the town together, but Evelyn wouldn't give up. She spread rumors that Samuel was promised to her, making the townspeople doubt the wedding. On the wedding day, one of the biggest their village had ever seen, Evelyn crashed it, shouting, "He's mine." The crowd gasped. Samuel stood firm. "I love Mary, not you," he said. Thomas stepped in, revealing Evelyn's lies about her wealth. She'd borrowed it all. Shamed, Evelyn fled, and the wedding went on with drums and dancing. Mary wore a white dress, and Thomas walked her down the aisle. A year later, Mary gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Samuel cried with joy, naming them Thomas and Clara. Thomas started a fruit trading business with Samuel's help, selling mangoes, bananas, and oranges. It grew until he became a top businessman. They lived happily, proving love and trust beat greed. This story shows that helping a needy stranger can change your life. Mary and Thomas helped Samuel, and though twists came, their kindness led to love and a better life. Be kind from the heart, true goodness wins.